1 year later.
Y'all were coming for us.
Yeah, but Tavis, that's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not in my heart. And like I said a few moments ago, I have a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. That can't be misinterpreted.
Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens on Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. The tape, 1 year later. Will broadcast live in afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later. Are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. When I'm out in them wild boys, blunts and fillets. When I'm out in LA, boys, raps and switches. Now blood walk to this, now grip walk to this. Now throw it up, raise it up, cause it's gangsta kid. Now blood walk to this, now grip walk to this. Now throw it up, raise it up, cause it's gangsta kid. I'm in my Lambo, maggot, ride real low, maggot. Doors lift up, I'm like, go, gadget. See the shit I got on. Homie, I'd hate to, my Teflon on, boy, my government issue. I hit your vertebrae, bullets rip through tissues. Your wife on a futon, hugging a shih tzu. Homie, you a chick, you got feminine ways. Heard you got 4 lips and bleed for 7 days. I got 4/5 and bananas on the case. And got more whips than a runaway slave. Me and
Diddy,
go back like some
you are locked in to hour 2 of RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. Welcome in, VIPs. Hour 2, we are still keeping it going, keeping it bubbly, keeping it a little controversial. Maybe not controversial, just a little uncomfortable for some. You know, we're going to continue that theme of the night, though, because that's where we're at. Things, trying to figure out our place, our connections one-on-one with each other. Welcome into hour 2. We're going to get into, as I said, Nia Long calling out the woman that her ex-fiance, Imi Udoka, had an affair with, maybe was harassing. We aren't sure of all of the details. We'll get into what she had to say about that. We're also going to talk about Kevin Hart's comments that people in the hood aren't smart enough to go and get savings accounts and not use check cashing places and spend all their money at liquor stores because it's cash. We'll talk about that. Of course, we're going to get into a couple of details regarding the writer's strike, what the writers are getting, what the studios gave up, when we can expect to see TV again, maybe. We'll talk about that. But before we get into all of that, Bobby Atoff, she's a podcaster, and her thing is sort of dry humor. We really saw her blow up with the Drake interview that got snatched offline for some reason that we don't know. Something happened. They both unfollowed each other. Apparently, there was some type of falling out that we're unclear about, but the interview's gone. But Bobby continues to get top interviews in hip-hop. People have wondered, why is she an industry plant? Because she's a young mom, raising her kids, ended up with a deal with one of the major agencies, and, it's blown up from there. So, most recently, she had an interview with Offset, and her brand of humor, kind of, is very dry. Like, she doesn't know much about the people that she's interviewing and so forth. But I don't think she was ready for Offset because he gives as good as he gets. So let's check out.
What do you do? That's the question.
I interview people.
Why?
Because I want to get to know them.
Why do you want to get to know me?
I didn't.
You did.
Your team reached out to mine.
Don't cap. Let's not cap about that. That's not flex for the gram. Uh-oh. CAP. Flag on the play. Cap.
What was that? Are you trying to make a song right now?
No, it was cap.
Okay. I honestly don't know how this came about. I'm not going to lie to you.
Me either.
Okay. Well, my team could have reached out to yours. I'm not going to. I don't want to make you look bad.
They had to show me who Bobby was. I thought they were talking about Bobby Boucher.
Never heard of Offset in
The
my
Water?
life.
Yes, you have.
Have not. I Googled
Damn.
you on the way here, and I read something about you.
I had to go on TikTok. I couldn't even
Can
Google
I-
you.
Thank you.
I had to go TikTok search. I couldn't Google you. Google's not there yet. You're not there yet. But you'll be there. But
So
you're on TikTok.
here's the thing. Bobby blew up on TikTok. It is interesting, though, when you listen to her style. I know, listen, I like dry humor. I like sarcasm a lot. Frasier was one of my favorite shows. But, and this is no shade, like, everybody is attracted to some different things. But I don't really get the hype behind Bobby's interviews. They're not particularly like knee slapping funny to me. And maybe, again, I might not be the intended audience. Some people might not enjoy my show. So we understand that. Taste is, completely individual based, right? But I do feel like these rappers, especially at the levels that they are, would not give a young black woman the same opportunity, kind of approaching it from the same perspective. And no, they don't owe anyone their time. But I'm just saying, when people are trying different formats or different things, they would be much harder. And it would take a lot more effort and certainly a greater length of shows and a higher amount of popularity for them to give the same country to, an interviewer, I feel, that was a black woman, kind of taking the same lackadaisical blase approach. Like, yeah, I don't really know much about your music. I don't really know much about your thing. So what's up? Let's chat. I don't think that would go over well. I think that, even in jokingly, I think that she would be given a really hard time. And I'm not trying to block anyone's success or say that they don't deserve it or she shouldn't be given the opportunity. She obviously has an audience somewhere that is enjoying her work. But it is interesting to see so much and so many hip hop artists flock to be a part of her show and her situation when there are various other podcasts involving, black women that are in the hip hop, women of color, I don't know, black men, just, I don't see a lot of people being given this opportunity to sit down with the names that she has been and with, marginally funny material. But that's just me. Andy?
Do some of these black female bloggers or whatever, do they have the same platform that Bobby does?
They could be TikTok popular, but here's the thing. Bobby kind of blew up and she was immediately scooped up by CAA. A black woman could go viral a couple of times and these same agencies aren't going to look to monetize her and raise her up. Outside of the shade room, right? Who can you think of as from a reporter aspect or an up-and-comer that has come up and blown up in this sort of fashion and given these opportunities? Maybe Zui? Maybe?
I don't even know who that is.
She was very sarcastic. She had a Showtime show. She really got started popular in the pandemic. Her show lasted for maybe 2 seasons. She interviewed like Chet Hanks and couple of other people. She was sort of dry and she blew up off of it, but
So is the issue just like some of our hip hop artists not going to black media outlets? Is that the main issue?
I don't necessarily have an issue per se. I think it's interesting and we should be aware. But I do think that if there was a black woman giving the same type of vibe and energy, she wouldn't be given the same opportunities. I just think that there is and I may not know who it is, there might be someone on YouTube, someone that's trying, and, Gina Views, we've talked about her quite a bit. She has a platform. Mm-hmm. Do you see Drake going for a sit down with her? Do you see Offset? And again, maybe this is not in the wheelhouse, but I just feel like we know it's definitely not. Bobby was a mommy blogger. She really doesn't know about these artists, mm-hmm. but yet they're flocking to her platform.
I ask those questions because one thing I do know about the hip hop community, majority of them, the individuals who rap, a lot of them come from, hustling backgrounds.
Right.
Right. So this chick Bobby or whatnot, I guess she's the new popping thing, and
Right,
she
and I
has a
get
strong
it.
following. So a lot of the times, what I know about hip hop is, they're always trying to cross over. You know what I mean? We want to, like, Snoop Dogg linking up with
Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart.
But
It's a great
let me ask you
crossover.
this: do you think Drake needed to cross over?
No, but I mean, if
I know Drake keeps his finger on the pulse and
Right.
he's into whatever's
Right.
hot. But by that same token, right? Again, I'm not mad that you're doing it. I understand. I'm not saying you should only do black outlets. You should only talk to black journalists. I'm not saying that either. That's BS, right? But what I am saying is you don't have one more interview in you to extend out to someone on the other side. You're both promoting a project. We know the shelf life and memory as far as music and putting things out is very, very small. We know social leads a lot of this. So if you're tapping into what's hot on different levels, and your fingers on the pulse, surely you see some benefit in tapping in with some of these underground ones. Drake blew up because of underground bloggers blowing him up back in the day. So I just, again, I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying you owe it. It's just an interesting perspective to take, to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know any platform for any hip hop artist is gonna be good. I know Drake and Offset could have easily went to $1 million worth of game, or
But I'm not even saying. But what I'm saying, they could have. But my point is, would you give an opportunity, right? We haven't seen them do it yet. That's all I'm saying.
Well, who's the black female blogger who's popping right now?
Got to be somebody out there. I guarantee you, though, if I was to send a request,
Why not?
They would be like, no, thank you.
Well, you won't know until you actually do it.
Maybe. We'll see.
I'm just saying.
Aubrey Sinclair in the chat says they bow down to the master's daughter, not to support someone that looks like them or their mother. I don't know. I just would like to see the love spread around because I know that the love is there for them. We're going to lift them up. We're going to protect them. We're going to go to war for them.
I think this is maybe a microcosm of how people feel about black business. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that there is definitely, to your point, an idea that if I deal with someone who is not in a machine as, a black individual, then there's a possibility that it's going to be janky. It's not going to be professionally run.
Absolutely.
That there's going to be, some hack stuff happening, leaks, just unprofessionalism overall. I do believe that
100%.
stigma is still attached to us, no matter how much black excellence we preach and how many black businesses succeed and blow up. Yeah, I definitely think that is a part of it. And that's why I said it's a shame. And there's small things that they could do to combat that don't cost them any money and realistically don't cost them that much time in the grand scheme of things as they're promoting a project. When we come forward, we'll have more on these trending topics and headlines. Listen, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Nia. We're going to talk about Kevin. And we're going to talk about Jamie Foxx. His friends are concerned he might be getting married. We'll get into that. All of that and more. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
RSVP with Jill Munroe is your go-to show for staying in the know. More engaging conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency on low Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Attorney Joe Cordell. Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
1455 Frazee Road, Suite 1050, San Diego, California, 92108. CordellCordell.com.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go: shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms: irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Fife.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars, working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage, career-track jobs. The Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing around anti-discrimination, learn about union apprenticeship programs, or sign on to a trade registry, please visit www.lablackworkerscenter.org. That's lablackworkerscenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Keeping you informed, entertained, and always ahead of the curve. This is RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. So, I said we're going to get into this Nia Long story. And it's interesting. We know a year ago, Nia's ex-fiance, Ime Udoka, was indefinitely suspended from the Celtics organization for allegedly engaging in what started as a consensual affair, and eventually he allegedly, I'm going to be dropping a lot of allegedlys with this because we never really got the complete story, but he allegedly started harassing the woman who worked within the Celtics organization. And, you know, she complained, some things happened, an outside investigation was done, and eventually Ime was relieved of his duties, and he is now the head coach of the Houston Rockets. He and Nia have broken up. They are not battling, but going through custody issues as far as their son, who I believe is 12 years old, as far as, you know, physical custody, primary custody, where he will live, those type of things, right? So today on Instagram, Nia reposted a video, and it is a black woman having a conversation with 2 white women, and it's about what the black woman deemed white woman tears. So we're going to listen to some of it, and then I'll tell you what Nia tagged the post with and what she hashtagged.
Unmoved by white tears. Most of us are unmoved by white tears because we don't actually think they're real. It's a performance. It's a switch that you turn on because you know that we have been socialized to see you as more human and of more value. So whatever it is you think and whatever it is you feel, we are supposed to respond to it. Y'all don't respond to black women crying the same way. Nobody does. Nobody does. The minute a white woman cries, the world has to stop. Oh my God, what's wrong with you, baby? Black women cry, we could be rolling around on the ground screaming. And you are moved because you've been socialized not to see us as human beings. Fuck. Our tears don't matter to you, but a white woman, and y'all know that shit. That's why I'm not here for the fragility. You know that. And so you very deliberately turn the shit on as a way to avoid accountability.
So, listen, Nia hashtagged this conversation with, where was this level of awareness a year ago? Celtics. She tagged the Celtics. And she also hashtagged Kathleen Lynch. Now, Kathleen Lynch is the woman's name who Amy, her ex-fiance, was in the situation with. There have been stories, indications that the way that it was presented was not exactly the way that the situation went down. We do know that it started out as a consensual situation. At a certain point, allegedly, she wanted to move on. He was saying no. Doesn't seem like Nia necessarily sees it in those terms. Stephen A. Smith has come out and said, after all of this had happened, that the Celtics organization owed Nia an apology. Nia has been adamant over and over again that they owe her an apology, that they didn't respect her, give her a heads up that this story was coming out. And now she's gone as far as putting the woman's name. Ooh, her name kind of came out there, and there was controversy surrounding that as to whether the Celtics were protecting this woman. Some were like, she's a victim, she should be protected. Others were on the other side of the fence with it. It's very complicated sort of situation. But Nia has always maintained that the Celtics basically reacted in an improper fashion. And what she's alleging here, if you can read between the lines, is that they did so because it was a white woman crying foul. So I've read some of the comments, and some think that Nia needs to get over this and let it go. That she is embarrassing herself, still talking about it, and really she should direct her anger and ire towards her ex-fiance. And that's where it should start and end. So I was just kind of curious as to if you had any thoughts on that. If you feel like she is out of line, she needs to let this go and move around. Obviously, she's very hurt. They were together for a number of years. Engaged for about 6 or 7 years before this incident. You can, assign whatever you'd like to the fact that they were engaged for that amount of time. But I do think to a degree she has a point. I know the woman was deemed a victim, and that's where it gets tricky, because sometimes in situations like this, you as a woman who may have engaged in one part of it may get blamed for the whole thing. And we don't know, again, the entirety of this situation. But if you are to believe one side, and the side that Nia seems to be leaning towards, the woman, once everything was kind of exposed or she got caught up, then wanted to hit those white fragility tears, and the world just locked up and was like, oh, you poor baby, let's do away with this bad man, and not really giving credence to what part she played in the whole thing, and whether it was a little more complicated than just this man that wouldn't leave her alone. So those are Nia's thoughts. I'm sure that we'll be hearing more about it. People have their opinions on Nia. She's been around for a long time, obviously a beauty and icon standard. Some think that she wasn't a nice person at one point in time. I love Nia Long. Shout out to Westchester High's very own. And I think that, what happened is very embarrassing. And whether or not we think that there should be favorites or things extended, I do think, considering the fact that she's a Hollywood actress, maybe they could have given her a little bit of a heads up. I don't think that it would have damaged their positioning. I don't think that it would have messed up their press and communications plan, because it doesn't seem like they had one and they were kind of flying by the seat of their pants. But it is affecting her to the point that, like I said, a year later, with Amy moved on to another team, she's still bringing it up. So I hope Nia finds some closure and some peace. And maybe one day we'll find out what actually happened with Kathleen Lynch. So anyway, moving on and around. Listen. Julia Fox. We remember her brief moment dating Kanye, right? And Julia was very conversational about the situation. She was into it. Obviously, Kanye was dressing her, so she was in those experimental outfits, and she was going really hard in the paint. Really looked like that she was, a paid girlfriend. I'm not saying a prostitute, I'm saying a paid girlfriend. Because this is when Kim was with Pete, and it seemed like a competition thing, right? Well, she is spilling all the intimate details surrounding her sex life with former boyfriend Kanye West. And guess what? There was no sex life. She said that the short-lived romance that happened, that they dated for 2 months, but there was no sex in the champagne room. That it was Kanye West's emotional drama that ultimately caused her to end things. And she said that, she wasn't comfortable with his unresolved issues. She said, and I quote, "It just seems like he had a lot to work on, and I don't have the time or the energy for that. I don't have the bandwidth or the emotional capacity for it. I'm proud of myself for that." She was also very candid in saying that she has a new memoir that's coming out. So obviously, we're going to continue to get these stories. We have Jada's memoir coming out next month. Kerry Washington dropped a memoir on Monday. So we're getting all of these details. But she basically said that, there was none. He wasn't into it. It wasn't about that. So for those of you that are wondering maybe what the experience is like to be with Kanye West in this era, just know you'll just be a dress-up doll, basically. She said that she still has the Hermes Birkin bag that he gifted her, and that 5 of her friends also, still got their trinkets from that night out in the town. So shout out to Julia. Listen, she extended, and obviously we know she was in Uncut Gems, and I liked her in that movie, but she extended that 15 minutes of fame to 35 and still rolling. Okay, when we come forward, we're going to get into these Kevin Hart comments, see what you think about them. We're also going to talk about what the writers are not giving up, what they are receiving, what they agreed to in the agreement. The strike will be over officially at midnight tonight. So at the end of this show, the writer's strike will be over, and we'll be charging ahead, hoping that the actors' strike will be over shortly. We'll also get into the comments from Erica Mena about VH1 and Love and Hip Hop airing a roundtable. Well, not VH1. Love and Hip Hop is now on what? Is it on MTV now? One of those. I don't know. We'll get into that story and more. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
I think nothing but $100 bills in the bankroll. I got the kind of money that the bank can't hold. Got it off the street, moving bundles and hoes. 7-3 Caprice, old school when I roll. Breeze pass with the E-pass, the toe. No more platinum, I'm wearing gold. I'm internationally known as the kid with the flow that brings enough dough. It's never enough dough. Shit, I need more. New shit out the stove. Baby blue was old, fresh off the floor. Stash box by the dash box.
Trending topics and the hottest happenings. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The husband of a Bronx daycare owner where a 1-year-old boy died due to fentanyl exposure has been arrested in Mexico. ABC News reports he was arrested by the DEA while on a bus in Sinaloa more than a week after Nicholas Dominici died and 3 other children were hospitalized in New York. Meanwhile, the Senate has voted to advance a short-term funding bill to avoid a government shutdown. The bipartisan measure would keep money flowing until mid-November to give Congress more time for a long-term package. However, the measure has to pass the House. A deal to fund the government must be passed by the end of the week. And the U.S. Supreme Court is rejecting an Alabama congressional map that features just one majority black district. It's the second time in 3 months Alabama Republicans have been handed a defeat. And that's the latest. I'm Esther Dillard from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Prime members save more at your Amazon Fresh store. As a Prime member, you'll save 10% on hundreds of items in store, from organic produce to pantry staples to handcrafted pizza. Head to Amazon.com/fresh locations and find a store near you.
On Monday, October 9th, don't miss the KBLA Talk 1580 exclusive, The Tape. 1 year later.
Y'all were coming for us. Yeah, but Tavis, that's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not in my heart. And like I said a few moments ago, I have a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. That can't be misinterpreted.
Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens. On Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580, The Tape. 1 year later. We'll broadcast live an afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later. Are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape. 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. Monday, October 9th. Live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
This season, your coffee orders are getting warmer, and your outfits are getting cozier. The world keeps changing, and so does COVID-19. That's why this season's COVID-19 shots have been updated. They're one of the best ways to help protect yourself against COVID-19. You can get a COVID-19 shot at the same visit as a flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC. Talk to your healthcare provider to learn more and schedule at vaccines.gov. And don't forget to get extra cinnamon spice. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist. Ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. curating the most compelling stories and delivering them straight to your ears. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
LD, aka the independent variable.
Trap God, I was serving up the whole world. Hey, where the gold at, baby? Hey, where the clothes at, baby? Hey, where the dough at, baby? In the bank, you know I ain't tryna blow that, baby. Hey, we gon' save that money. Hey, we gon' save that money. Hey, we gon' save that money. What we do, we gon' save that
The
money.
rap gang got it all wrong. We ain't about to go and spend money just to flex on it. We ain't really got it like ya. I'm a type of mother that'll check the check, do the math, I ain't never getting robbed. Those margaritas not going on my card. I ain't about to split a damn thing for convenience sake. I'm at the restaurant working that way.
newer.
You ain't heard of Lil Day, young elder Jew, biz major. You know about the world he raised in.
That is Lil Dicky, Fetty Wap, Rich Homie Quan. Say that money.
Okay, Lil Dicky, like the white guy?
The white boy, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, listen, the message is important. And of course it's on theme because Andy is always on point, right? You're locked into hour 2 of RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. And save that money. We're saying that because
I stumped you.
you stumped me. You did stump me. You really did. You know, one day maybe we'll keep track. I think that's like 3. We're just 3 months in.
It's been a while since I stumped you.
It has been, you know. It has been.
I know some of the newer stuff that I play. Well, this ain't even really new. This is more like,
Lil
it's
Dicky
like
been around.
5,
Like
6.
his TV show was like big, right?
What TV show he had?
No, I was thinking of Dave. I was getting Lil Dicky mixed up with Dave. I just knew that they were white and dealt with hip hop, and I had a slight moment. Forgive me. They are
Grouping
not
them
the
all
same.
together, huh?
Yeah, and they are not the same. But for some reason, Lil Dicky and Lil Dave were the same. Well, it's not even Lil Dave. It's just Dave. They're the same person to me, but I know that they're not. So, it just happens every now and again. You know, we'll take it. So listen, we're going to talk about this Kevin Hart thing. You know, I saw some comments after, and I really believe that Kevin meant well in what he was trying to say. I think that, you know, he was trying to illustrate that, you know, there are food deserts in the hood. We know resources are few and far between. We know that there is a tax to being lower income, right? As far as, you know, it's more expensive for us to eat healthier. We're not going to have access to the same type of resources and things in our neighborhood. It may be harder for some of us to get bank accounts because of this, that, and the third, things of that nature. So I think that Kevin believed that he was trying to help when he made this statement. But some are pushing back on social media and feel like this is what happens when people, you know, get rich. They become out of touch. They don't understand what it really is like day to day to live a life where you are, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul, or trying to, you know, put your funds together in the best way possible. And that really what he's talking about is systematic, or not including the systematic aspect in this conversation is a detriment to the people that you are talking to. But let's listen to it and get your opinion.
If you look in the hood, there's liquor stores and check cashing places. You know why? Because they know that the people in the hood aren't smart enough to open up bank accounts. They're going to get a check, they're going to cash it, and it's a liquor store right next to it. Let's just put that around them. Let's also put a bunch of that's easy and cash available. We don't want you to gain credit. We want you to be cash driven. That's how we keep the poor poor. It's not until you understand that you get out.
Well, I don't think that they want to not keep you in the credit cycle, because that gets them more money. I'm just saying. That's just a random thought. But Andy, you look like you had, did you? No, maybe not. Okay. I think that, I know that he meant well, like I said. I believe wholeheartedly. I understand the message. But sometimes I think that we have to take some time and use our words carefully, especially when we're trying to connect with and touch a certain, demographic of people, because you can offend them. You can make them feel like you were talking down to them. And I don't believe that was his purpose.
Look, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Facts.
You know what I mean? Like, if we have to, monitor everything that we want to say before we actually say it, we probably wouldn't be saying anything. So I just think, just go ahead and say it. I think you illustrated it correct. I think, his intentions were well understood. I mean, I'd like to assume he grew up in the hood too, so
he did. I believe that, from Philly, right?
You know what I mean? Like, I do disagree, but also, what did he say? He said something about the first part of what he said, that when we get money,
we go to liquor stores and check cashing
that
places.
we don't want to save or something like that. No, I think we want to save. It's just that when we get the bread, we got bills to pay. You
exactly.
know what I mean?
That money goes
stuff
through. It's like you think about, if you're taxing 15 to 20% of, let's just say, 60,000. That's gonna hit a lot different, even though it's a lot more money if you're taxing 28% of 200,000. It's going to impact you differently. Although obviously it's more money with the 200,000 that you're missing out on, it's still more money for you to move and operate with. I don't know. It's just a difficult situation, but I think just lowering it to people in the hood don't want to save and they just want to go to the liquor store. I think that is short-sighted, and that is an old approach. I don't even think that conversation hits the same, because we've seen so many different things. So shout out to Kevin. I'm sure he means well. Listen, this story is interesting, right? We've talked about Doja Cat, and I like Doja Cat. I do. I realize that she's pop. She's had a lot of beef with her fans over the past couple of months. She said that her fans that were, big fans of her first album were kind of dumb. She didn't love the music, all of the music that she's doing. That's not necessarily uncommon. Wouldn't say that they were dumb, but, I get it. Different opinions, different strokes. But, we in the community sometimes can be sort of hard on Black people that are sort of left of center, that don't dive into culture in the same way that we do, that don't embrace, some of the same things. They may not be coming to the cookout. They may only be coming to the cookout with paper plates because they're vegan and they don't eat all that stuff you eat, whatever the case may be. We can have some issues sometimes with people. So a reoccurring theme with Doja has been, does she indulge with the Black side of her, as a biracial woman? As far as her relationships, does she date Black men? Does she interact with Black men? So on one of her videos on Instagram, someone left a comment and said, "Girl, where are your colored friends?" I don't like the use of the word colored. I think that's very 1940s. But anyway, Doja responded, "I don't need to convince you that I have Black friends. Get a bleeping life, moron." I think that the reason why I brought this here and the reason why I brought this up is, do you look at Black people differently if they don't hang out or socialize with other Black people? And if you do, and that person is, let's say, an athlete or an artist, or, they do something that you admire their work in, does it change your perspective on their work and how you interact with them? We'll get into that when we come forward. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Infusing a sense of fun and entertainment in every episode. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton. And I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for education as a right, not a privilege. Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science is a private, non-profit, community-founded, student-centered university committed to cultivating diverse health profession leaders who are dedicated to social justice and health equity for underserved populations. CDU does this through outstanding education, clinical service, and community engagement. Recently, Charles Drew University made history by opening only the 5th medical school at an historically black university. Congratulations, South LA, and congratulations to the Dean of the medical school, Dr. Deborah Protho-Stith. CDU is now training doctors and providing $90 million in annual economic benefit to Watts and surrounding neighborhoods. To apply for medical school, get more information, or sign your child up for the Junior Doctors Saturday School program, visit cdrewu.edu. That's cdrewu.edu. At KBLA, we are dedicated to equity in education and ending healthcare apartheid. And we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The Chase Ink Business Premier Card is made for people who make things happen, like me. I'm Sam, founder and CEO of Manifest, a product design company that makes everyday products designed smarter. I get 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more, plus unlimited 2% cash back on all other purchases, which helps us make more smart ideas into a brilliant reality.
The Ink Business Premier Card. Learn more at chase.com/business premier. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours. Real business owner compensated for their participation. Account subject to credit approval. Restrictions and limitations apply. Cards are issued by JP Morgan Chase Bank. Any member FDIC.
Now back to more captivating conversation on RSVP with Jill Munroe.
You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. VIPs, thank you for rocking with us. We have a phone call. It's late, and I appreciate her staying up late to lock in with us. Fahima, what do you have to say about Doja?
Oh, well, I really I put my comment about Kevin Hart in the chat because I had called earlier, but in terms of Doja Cat, I think her father from South Africa, so I think that's why they asked where are the colored people in your friend circle.
Okay.
It was, a reference to or dig, if you will, to the fact that the stratification in South Africa, you have colored, black, Indian, and white. And I think that's why they said, where's the colored people in your friend circle?
Okay, that makes sense because I know that they do still utilize that language. That is a whole different thing from black. I don't pretend to wholly understand their whole breakdown, but I do know that is a. Well,
it's interesting. They've reclassified everyone now in South Africa that are Afrikaner to black. It has something to do with the whole restructuring after apartheid. It was funny because when I was in South Africa, this guy walked up to me. He said, "My name is Winston Schillenford, and I'm colored." And I said, "Well, you look like a Negro to me," but I didn't say that.
Listen. It's such an interesting thing. I think as Black Americans, we have a different and unique perspective because, most of us have some, Caucasian blood running through us because of slavery. And I think that in other countries, that is a hard concept for them to work with. And
well, even here in the U.S., you have people in Louisiana who are considered Creole. So the thing is, with people all too often, they use their immediate frame of reference, and that's what they view the lens from. But they have to remember that different parts of the world are very different. You know, like in Brazil, you have the race stratification. But anyway, I didn't call to go into all of that. I just said I had made the commentary about Kevin Hart should stick to comedy and leave the commentary alone. I think it just shows ignorance because, first of all, and I think you may have alluded to this, they don't, capitalism doesn't want black people or poor people using cash. They want them in debt, you know, so they can keep getting money out of them. And I've lived, you know, in quote unquote the hood, and there are hardworking people, and many of them do have bank accounts, and they're not all spending their money on alcohol. I just think it's just a bunch of ignorance, and he should just stick to comedy.
I hear you on that. I just think it's a little, short-sighted in phrasing. Same stereotypes could come a different way. Andy?
Fahima, I love you. I rock with you.
You disagree with me about what?
I don't know if I disagree. And it's not even you, because I know other people have made comments about certain individuals staying in their lane. It's as if like somebody can't have an opinion about something. You know what I mean? Like maybe he was asked a question and he just had an opinion. I don't think we're viewing Kevin Hart as like the financial teacher or anything like that. I just, they were having conversation. He just so happens to be a celebrity, and that quote was, something that people took and went crazy with it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, people can have their own opinions, but they can't have their own facts. That's the problem.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say, and I'm with you, and I think as us who consume it, we should be able to have we should be able to decipher, you know what I'm saying, or at least, do your own research on top of that. It's like when you go to church, the preacher always says, read the Bible yourself too. Everything that I'm telling you, you know what I'm saying, go ahead and still read it for yourself. So, I don't put these individuals on a pedestal. Tyler Perry says what he says. I'm not taking what Tyler Perry says as law. You know what I mean?
See, I agree with Tyler Perry. I agree with Tyler Perry, actually, the comments that he made. I think I agree with him.
Ooh.
Oh.
I think
Andy said, oh.
Well, let me just say this. People have to do what they feel is right for them.
Facts.
And far too often, people's relationships fail because they're concerned about what other people are going to think.
That is 100% correct. 100%.
And if you're in a relationship with someone and they make you happy, other society standards and other people's standards are irrelevant. Like, I teach a class called Sex, Roles, Marriage, and Family, right? And all too often, like, one of the questions I pose when I do this popular education piece is, how do you feel about a woman making more money than you? And we talk also about gender roles. People are just too concerned about what other people are going to think. You do what's best for you and in your relationship, and the hell with the rest of it.
Well said.
Very well said, right? Hit hit the head of the nail.
Something like that.
Something like that. You know what I mean.
I agree with Tyler. Tyler was absolutely correct. I don't want to belabor the point, but I used to be on this cable television show, and the person who used to produce us decided that it was cheaper for her husband to stay at home and take care of the kids rather than them spending all this crazy money for child care. And other people had their opinions about this, but it worked for them.
And I am 100% in agreement of doing what works for you. Let me ask you this really quickly, though, Fahima. The question about Doja Cat and, her basically being asked if she has black or colored friends. Does that, as far as an artist, maybe not Doja, she may not be your cup of tea, but in general, does that impact how you view an artist or talent far as, you don't care about that at all?
I'm concerned with the art. Although Doja Cat is not my cup of tea, I just found out, I know about her father being from South Africa because she was estranged from him, and then she had written some derogatory songs about black people, and that when I had read up on it a couple of years ago, and that's when I learned her father was from South Africa. And she was estranged from him.
But so do you think that all goes hand in hand, her maybe not having many black friends, being estranged from her father, and some of the, thoughts she seems to share? Because she doesn't appear to date black men.
Well, I think, and again, I'm not trying to diagnose her or assess her, but I would say clinically, her distance from Black people is tied to her relationship with, or non-relationship with her father.
I would agree with that. I would think so too. Fahima, thank you as always for staying up late and clocking in with us. You know we appreciate it.
All right. Good night.
Have a good night. Andy?
Yeah, as we were talking about Doja Cat and Fahima came in, and we were kind of essentially saying, like, we were saying it but not saying it. Social media obviously impacts us all.
It does.
Right? And it had me thinking about Mariah Carey for some reason. And it had me thinking, like, did Mariah Carey get a lot of this?
Yes.
Oh, she did.
So here's the thing.
Okay.
When Mariah came out, a lot of people were unsure. They're like, but the mindset around it was a different conversation too. I know she got something in her. I know she got some Black in her. And when it finally came out, it was like, I knew it. Because initially, a lot of the conversation was Mariah was Venezuelan and white. Right? They're Black Venezuelans, and her dad, I guess, had some of that or whatever, but he's essentially a Black man. But maybe it was Tommy. I can't really remember why she was positioned in that way. But she went through a bit of a thing, too, where people were like, oh, she's one of us, especially with Vision of Love. But then when you think about the second album, Music Box, when she was very, dream lover and more pop, and her leads in the videos were white males, then it was kind of, well, does she? But we weren't trying to push biracials out of Blackness at that time. We didn't have we grew up with the one drop rule, and we sort of accepted it. Largely, I think, is because a lot of these children were born to their mothers, and children are going to be the mother's responsibility. The fathers could walk away or could do other things, but the children were left with the mother and the community. And I think that is why people often ask, well, why do Black people so willingly accept, and why do they do this? Because they accepted their mothers, and it's a community effort. And I think that is why they embrace them, and why they still do, and why people have such a hard time when you're trying to make them choose or push them to the other side where they weren't accepted. And we always showed up for each other within that. So I feel like that has a lot to do with it, but it was a different time frame. And as we've moved on, we see the push where people are almost trying to give biracials their own race, and I don't know how that lands. Do you know what I'm saying? I understand you want to be respectful of both sides. I can only speak to the era that I came up with and understand why, biracials were kind of, when it came down to it, it was like, well, really, how am I going to treat you? Am I going to treat you like a white person if I know that you have this? Or are you going to be treated like you can only drink out of that fountain? I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, I only ask because I look at the social media element, and everybody has an opinion. And, when Fahima came in, we were talking about, the Tyler Perry, the relationships, and do what works for you. And it just has me thinking, like, some of these people on social media are trolls. So are we... should we care?
Nope.
Should Doja Cat have cared about that question that's on social media? You know what I mean?
I think that she probably gets it a lot, and I think she is in a weird place with her fans right now. And I think her Blackness gets questioned a lot. And I understand the conversation. I may not necessarily agree with all of it, but I at least kind of get to it. I don't agree with it. Let me be clear. But I understand why the questions come up. When we come forward, hour 3, it's the after hours. So we're going to get into Kiki telling us to mind our business. Of course, more trending topics and headlines, more stories. Look, it's a lot happening, and we're going to keep you tapped in. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
I ain't never hit a ball with a cover. Low thread count, hard with the covers. Free trial memberships, dawg. I never joined the suit, dawg.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The husband of a Bronx daycare owner, where